When GEPRC originally sent me this drone, I was annoyed because, like, how am I supposed to review a drone if it doesn't have an air unit in it? But then I realized it's actually a feature, not a bug, because this GEPRC Cinebot35 has GEPRC's new modular VTX mounting system. Here is the camera cage with no camera and no VTX in it. Let me show you this one. This is the GEPRC Cinebot25 V2, and it came with a cage and it came with an 04 air unit in it pre-installed. And what we're going to do in this video is take a look at these two new drones, see how they fly, see what their specs and features are, and we're going to move the camera from one to the other and see how freaking easy that is, because I only have one air unit, so I got to move it if I want to fly it. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. This is my wife's little project over here. A little shake there. Oh man, this thing flies good. If I had ever gotten to fly the 2.5 inch, maybe it would have flown just as good. Okay, and let's do a little dive and see how she handles. Oh, nope. Nope. That's another prop. That's another prop. Holy mackerel. The Cinebot25 V2 and the Cinebot35 are basically identical frames to each other, just one scaled down and one scaled up a little bit. And that makes sense because they're both compatible with this mounting system, so you'd think they'd at least have to have a little bit of similarity between them. Well, they have more than a little bit of similarity, as you'll see in this video. As far as I know, these are the only frames that GEPRC makes that are compatible with this VTX mount. I don't know that for 100% sure, but I did just go through GEPRC's website and look at a bunch of their other drones to see if they had a compatible frame, and they don't. And that certainly is a limitation of a system like this. If it only works on these two drones, then you're only going to be able to switch back and forth between these two frames. And so, like, if you've got a 5-inch or a 7-inch or a 10-inch, you're going to have a dedicated mount, and it's going to limit the usefulness of the modular system. That being said, it is probably more common that someone would have a 2.5-inch CINEBOT and a 3.5-inch CINEBOT, because, like, those are common sizes for people who use CINEBOTs, especially people who use them for work. Those are common sizes to have. You're going to use the 3.5-inch more for outdoor stuff, like higher speed chasing vehicles, maybe not chasing like cars going 70, 80 miles an hour, but things chasing mountain bikes, skateboarders, maybe even some slower like automobiles. You're going to use it for that kind of thing. And then the smaller 2.5-inch, you're going to use more for like internal stuff, or any place where things get tight, or when you're going to be in much closer proximity to the talent, if you will, and you want just a little bit of lower stakes if you were to like make contact when you didn't mean to. Speaking of which, is this thing under 250 grams? I don't think it is, just from like how it feels in my hand. Let's find out, because like that certainly is one of the reasons to choose a smaller drone. That 250 grams threshold might not matter as much to a hobbyist, but it definitely matters to a professional who's doing Part 107 work here in the United States anyway, and many other countries also use the 250 gram threshold. If you're going to be flying over people, then you definitely want to be under 250 grams. Now, this doesn't have a battery, but let's see what we're at. 220 grams. Yeah, no. It seems really unlikely that by the time you put a battery on this, it's going to be under 250 grams, although I guess theoretically. This mount is very cool and very well designed. Like, for example, it has built-in soft mounting. So the camera is vibration isolated on these little bobbins here. Every time I see these bobbins, I point out that a lot of times they'll pull out in a crash if there's enough weight on them. And you'll notice that, well, here, let's look at the one with the actual VTX mounted in it. You'll notice that both the VTX itself and the camera are soft mounted. And yes, they're both mounted on the same bracket. So the 04 goes here and the camera goes up here, and they're soft mounted together. The advantage of that, I suppose, is that with a little bit more weight on those bobbins, you're going to get a little bit more damping, and it's going to help block some of that vibration. But the disadvantage is that in a crash, you're going to have that much more weight pulling on those bobbins, and I have seen it happen before that the bobbins rip out. Not on these mounts specifically, I haven't flown them yet. Typically what you'll have is the entire top sort of canopy on some of GEPRC's other drones. I've seen it will have the VTX mounted and so forth, and I have seen it rip out. So if that happens, it's a little annoying, but it's not like soft mounting the air unit is optional. You absolutely have to soft mount it if you're going to use image stabilization. Whether that image stabilization is built into the O4 air unit or whether you're using the aftermarket GyroFlow software to stabilize it, the camera has to be soft mounted for that to work. And if you're going to be doing something with a CINEBOT, you probably are going to be doing stabilization. Most people buy these for producing smooth footage, not for the pure joy of flying them. As far as wiring goes, it couldn't be simpler. There's just this wire that goes to the back of the air unit and boom, plugs in. It settles down in here. You put a few screws in, it's like 4 screws, and you're ready to go. I do notice that this wire does not include the S-Bus cable. It only has 4 wires, not 6, which means that if you're using the GEPRC controller instead of like an Express ELRS controller, then it will not work. You would need to add these 2 wires, or I'm going to guess that this plugs into the flight controller instead of being soldered on. I can't see it back there. I'm going to guess it plugs in, and so you could just replace this with a 6-pin or a 6-wire harness that you supply yourself. I'm kind of surprised that they did that. Like, on the one hand, sure, this comes with Express ELRS receiver. We bought it with the Express ELRS receiver, so presumably that's what we're using. I wonder, why not just give me those 2 wires in case I want them. There is an issue that some flight controllers have where if the air unit is connected to the plug, the UARTs conflict on the flight controller in a way that causes the air unit to stomp on the Express ELRS receiver, and basically the receiver doesn't work. Maybe that's why they've left this out, in which case, well, I guess that's a justifiable decision, although I'd really like to see different UARTs. Like if you put the Express ELRS receiver on UART 1 and the GEPRC on UART 2, then there's no downside and you can have sort of everything. But I suspect most people are not using the GEPRC anyway. They're going to be using the Express ELRS receiver, and so like maybe if you bought the PNP version, they would include the 6-wire plug. I doubt it. They're probably doing them all the same. As you see here, the drones can be ordered with either an Express ELRS receiver or PNP, that stands for plug and play, and it basically means you have to supply your own receiver. If you plan to use something other than ELRS 2.4 gig, or if you plan to use the GEPRC controller, that you would select PNP. Most people will probably choose the ELRS 2.4G option, and that's fine. Could we theoretically get more range if we had 900 megahertz? Sure, but this isn't exactly a long-range drone, and you'll probably get more range than you really could ever want off of ELRS 2.4 gig. I do like the antenna mounting. I like the floppy antenna mounting. One of the things I'm just twiddling it. One of the things I've learned with designing and building drones is that if everything is rigid, then it breaks. And if everything flexes, then it bends and it stays in one place, as long as it doesn't flex too much. And in case you're thinking, well, Bardwell, you're showing us the 3.5 and not the 2.5. Why aren't you showing both of them? Because they're the same. Well, they're the same. Okay, there's a little bit of difference. Like this grate here is bigger on the 3.5 and it's smaller on the 2.5. But like they're the same. They're the same, pretty much. You can't see it under this plastic cover, but both of them come with an M10 GPS pre-installed. M10 is the latest, greatest technology and gives you the most satellites locked and the best. Just it's the new hotness, and it is what you want. We'll see how that performs in the real world in terms of locking satellites, because just because a GPS is using the latest technology, depending on how the wires are routed and so forth, sometimes a drone will not lock satellites. There'll be too much electrical noise in the system, and so we'll see how well these have been designed and if they lock a good number of satellites when we take them out to fly. We've got the XT30 connector here on the 2.5 inch, and on the 3.5 inch, it is an XT60 connector. The 2.5 inch is supposed to use a 4S high volt battery around 600 to 800 milliamp hours, and the 3.5 inch is supposed to use a 6S battery around 1,000 to 1,500 milliamps. So basically the same 6S battery that you would commonly use on a 5-inch freestyle or racing drone, and that's good because you probably got a ton of those laying around. I love how they are mounting the battery. This is so good. So often, like, the battery strap doesn't have something secure, or maybe it's secure, but it's like just a slit in the carbon and running it through. Sometimes you have to thread it through the frame in a really annoying way. This is okay with me. I do see that it's not going around the battery, right? It is just going over the top. And this is not your typical battery strap. Right? Like, you could probably adapt a typical battery strap in some way, but this is a non-standard battery strap. So if it rips or gets old or something, you may have a little bit of trouble replacing it. In fact, it's sewed on there. So we would have to take the screws out and take this bar off and then put a new one on, and presumably we'd have to buy that new one from GEPRC. Hang on, I have to pull this coating, the plastic off the battery pad, because that is very important, that the battery pad be good and sticky. We want that. Oh, there we go. And it feels pretty sticky. I like it. It's pretty grippy. I hope that it will hold the battery very securely in a crash, which we will definitely be doing. On the 2.5 inch, we have 1404 motors at 4800 kV, and that's fine. That's good. Like, that's right in the center of where you want to be for a drone of this weight with this size props. It's probably going to fly pretty good. And on the 3.5 inch, we have 2105.5 motors at 2450 kV. And this is really nice. This is actually a bigger motor than some people would put on a 3.5 inch, although, you know, trends change over time and generally things trend towards larger motors. I'm really happy to see this motor on here. And I suspect it's going to fly better than, like, if we had once upon a time we might see a 2005 or something like that. It's very nice to see these larger motors, just a little more stator volume, a little more torque, and a little more ability to drive those props, especially as we go to a 3.5 inch prop instead of a 3-inch prop. Hold on a second, let me get this call. The frames are a combination of carbon fiber and plastic, as most CINEBOT frames are these days. We have a carbon fiber plate here, which has all the electronics mounted to it. Here you can see the mounting for, I assume, the flight controller and the ESC. And we'll go ahead and take this cover off in a minute, and we'll take a look at what that looks like on the inside. The carbon fiber plate is pretty beefy. That looks like 3 or maybe even 4 millimeters. Hold on, let me get my calipers out. 3.8, maybe it's 3.5 millimeters, I doubt it's 3.8. I probably just got a little angle on the calipers, but it's like 3.5 millimeters. That's pretty beefy. For the 2-inch, yeah, it's a lot thinner for the 2.5 inch, as you would expect. That looks like maybe 2.5 millimeters, I would guess. And, well, it's smaller, it's lighter. And don't forget that they are reinforced with that plastic. So you can see that the carbon fiber is mounted on top of the plastic, and then we have a single piece of plastic going down. It is enclosing all the electronics. It's providing the mounting for all of this stuff, and it includes the prop guard. So this is all one piece here. If you were to break a prop guard or crack this somehow, it's not modular. You're going to be replacing the whole thing. That's a choice. If it was modular, then you could replace just one piece when it breaks, but it's also going to have a lot more complexity. It's going to have more screws and more fiddliness, and I'm kind of okay with them making this a single piece as long as they do it right. So we have to give them credit for making the right choice of strength, rigidity, that this isn't going to just crack and break and then need to be replaced and be worthless. GEPRC has been doing this for a long time, and I feel like probably they've earned the benefit of the doubt on that one. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to beat it up, and if it breaks, I'll tell you, but I can't, in the context of this review, give it a full, weeks and months of crash testing like you would if you actually bought it. And so sometimes these things don't show up until you beat on it for a little while. It's got some give, but it has to have some give, otherwise, the willow tree, right? If I press on it, I can get it to come in and touch the prop. That's not the end of the world. It comes back out again. We'll do some beating on it and we'll see how it does. And we'll also see if it's willing to move enough to let the prop make contact with something. Overall, I feel like this is pretty good. And same is true for the 2.5 inch. It's smaller, but it's got the same kind of like rigidity, like they've just taken the same thing and scaled it down a little bit. Now, if I open this up, what do I have to do? Like, I don't want to take screws. I think these screws need to come out. And it feels like these are going into plastic. Just the way it was gripping feels like they're going into plastic. That'd be interesting if that was true. Oh, okay, so don't take that off. That is the antenna. Oh, interesting. Look, that's the front part where the air unit goes. So this is the... That probably doesn't come off. Let's see what happens if I try to pull this off. Oh yeah, I was right. So the antenna is screwed on here. These two screws are not structural. And this whole thing will lift up, and there we go. Come off. Oh, it's connected. We have a receiver connected here. And very smart. They've got the receiver LEDs passed through to this translucent plastic, so you can see the receiver LED status. The receiver bind button is here, is not accessible from the outside. That's a little frustrating. You shouldn't need that bind button with Express ELRS. There are various ways to bind the receiver that don't involve pressing the bind button, but sometimes the bind button is what you want, and so it would be better if it was accessible. But I don't see how that would be possible because the LEDs are on the other side. You can kind of see here that this translucent plastic comes around and is, so I don't see how you would do that without redesigning the whole receiver, so be it. A nice plug here. Make it easy to disconnect this if you want to. And let's see, we've got a flight controller and ESC here. The flight controller on the 3.5 inch is an H743 processor. That is I think it's the current state of the art in terms of capabilities. It's not actually the fastest in terms of pure clock speed, but it has like memory and so forth. It's like the one that you kind of want if you want the maximum future proofing. Most of the H743s also can run both iNav and ArduPilot, although I'm not sure whether GEPRC has actually released targets for those firmwares, but the board architecture at least supports it. On the 2.5 inch, we have an F722 processor, which is still pretty good, but not quite the statiest of the state-of-the-art like the H743. It'll still do pretty much anything you could need it to do in terms of UARTs and processor speed and so on. The ESC on the 3.5 inch is a 60 amp 32-bit ESC. It is nice that we have a 32-bit ESC on this. Not so much in terms of performance, like 8-bit ESCs can fly every bit as good as 32-bit ESCs. Chris Rosser's testing has absolutely validated that. But the 32-bit ESCs let you change the settings with a little more flexibility if you're trying to get just a little bit of more performance gain out of it. And it's just nicer to have a bigger number, I suppose. On the 2.5 inch, I'm not going to open it up because I don't like taking out screws, but the 2.5 inch has this F722 all-in-one with a 35 amp 32-bit ESC. Coming to the back, we have a buzzer, a nice loud buzzer, a real buzzer. We have the XT60 here. And what else? This looks like an LED driver board. Oh, very nice. And we have a USB extension. I always like it when they make it easy for me to plug in the USB cable on these CINEBOTs. A lot of times the USB port is buried up inside here and it's a pain in the ass to get to, and you have to do some kind of like external plug like this bullshit. That's so good. That's so good. And I'm going to assume this is a bootloader button. So good. So good. GEPRC. All of my love. So good. Now we got to take them over to the computer and set them up. I don't guess that we need motor beeper because we have an actual physical beeper. So it's kind of weird that they've turned that on. It can be kind of annoying to have both of those things going. And there are times when the motor beeper gets in the way of, like, you can't arm if you were just beeping the motors. So I would probably turn the motor beeper off. I'd always rather have a physical beeper if it's available. It's usually louder than the motor beeper as well. Not really a mistake to have it on, just a little confusing. See? Beeper. Real beeper. Motor beeper is a substitute for when you don't have a real beeper, which you often don't. Ooh, that's bold. They have failsafe set to GPS rescue right out of the box. This is something that manufacturers of Betaflight bind and fly drones have been hesitant to do in the past because Betaflight's GPS rescue, its return to home functionality, has been a little bit, well, you have to tweak it, and if it's not exactly right, it might freak out, and they're just like, hey, you turn that on if you feel like it, we're not going to do it for you. It has gotten a lot more mature in recent versions of Betaflight, but this drone did ship with Betaflight 4.5.2, not 2025.12. So for 4, I would have said that's irresponsible, don't do it. For 5, GPS rescue is pretty good as long as it's tuned correctly, and presumably they've tuned it correctly because it's a bind and fly. And 2025.12, it's significantly better still. Let's take a look at what's going on with this ESC, because if this ESC has BL-Heli32 on it, that is notable. They're doing the thing. So, a little backstory. BL-Heli32 was the most popular 32-bit ESC firmware in the world for a long time, up till about a year to 2 years ago, roughly, when the BL-Heli32 devs basically shut the whole company down. The reasons they did that related to the war in Ukraine, and it was a whole thing that we don't need to go into. Long story short, they shut the thing down. And what that means is that no one can flash BL-Heli32 anymore. Not manufacturers and not users. But other manufacturers are flashing a pre-release firmware that was never intended to be released to the public. The idea was that manufacturers would use this pre-release firmware to develop their hardware, and then when they went to full production, they would license the firmware and they would pay the BL-Heli devs and they would ship. Now manufacturers just shipping this pre-release firmware, and what that means is that not only can we not flash BL-Heli32, which no one can, we also can't even configure it. I don't think you can do anything. You can't touch it. Like, let's see. Yeah, I'm getting error messages, error messages, error messages. I can't read. Can I change the settings at all? Let's find out. Hold on. Let's see if I can pick an ESC, and I'm just going to change a setting. Change the PWM frequency. Okay, there we go. And no, see, write setup is grayed out. I cannot write setup. I cannot modify anything about this ESC. And not that I'd need to most of the time. See, should you care about this? A lot of people won't care about this because a lot of people would never touch these settings anyway. This is a bind and fly. Presumably GEPRC has tuned it exactly how it needs to be, and you shouldn't need to touch this stuff. And so people will say, well, what's your freaking problem? It just works. And there is some truth to that. But if you did want to change some of these settings, like sometimes you get a little bit of jello in your DJI camera and changing the motor PWM frequency fixes it. You can't. You simply can't. The only thing you could do if you wanted to tweak these ESC settings would be to flash AM32 to the ESC, and I don't even know if that's possible because I don't know if there's an AM32 target for this ESC, and the process of doing it is a giant pain in the ass. So basically, you're stuck with this. And maybe you shouldn't even care, but it's worth knowing. Next, we're going to do some test flights of these drones, and I'm going to show you a little gotcha I ran into when installing the battery on the 2.5 inch. But before I do that, I want to take a second and ask if you would consider joining my Patreon. Patreon is the single best way for you to support the work that I do here. If you like watching my videos, if they educate you, if they help you solve problems, if they help you choose the right product instead of wasting your money on the wrong product, the best way for you to say thank you and make sure that I am able to continue doing this is to join my Patreon. There's a link in the video description below. The price of joining my Patreon is less than you spend on props. It's less than you spend on many things. And hey, I understand we all have to decide where our money goes. There's lots of creators I watch and I don't join their Patreon because I just don't feel like doing it right then. Well, maybe today's the day that you decide I'm worth getting above that threshold. If it is, the link is down below. And if not, just keep watching the video. I'll keep making them and maybe that day will come. Here's the gotcha. You ready for it? This is an 850 milliamp hour 4S high volt. That is right in the middle of the range of recommended batteries. They recommend a 750 to 1000 milliamp hour 4S high volt. Now, this is not a GEPRC. As you can clearly see, it's a GNB. And so like that may be why I'm having this problem. But look, I'm going to slide that sucker in there. And when I slide it in there, whoops, it's covering the XT30. It cannot, I don't know how I'm gonna get this to fit. And that kind of stinks because this is like, I guess I can kind of cock it to the side. This is the only 4S high volt I have that is in the right milliamp hour range. So if you decide to do this, it's the clever placement. It can't slide forward. No, but it can't slide backward either. Woof. Anyway, we'll figure it out. It's kind of annoying. It's not ideal, but it'll probably be all right. The first thing I see is that we have no SATs locked, no GPS SATs locked. I guess I'm gonna leave this sit for a little while and see if we can get some SATs locked. It is good that the air unit is up front and the GPS is in the rear. That's gonna help. Let's just see how long it takes to lock SATs. We are about 1:30 since power up and have 4 SATs locked. It is normal that it takes longer to get a satellite lock the first time you're at a new location because the GPS has to download the whole almanac, whatever that is. We'll keep going until we have a minimum of, I think it's 6 SATs is the absolute minimum for Betaflight to do GPS rescue. Of course, we could just take off and fly in acro mode, but I'm kind of interested in how long this takes. All right, at about 3 minutes, 30 seconds, we have 6 SATs locked. We'd ideally like to have more, minimum of like 8. Currently showing an HDOP of 4.7. HDOP is basically the quality of the lock versus just the sheer number of satellites locked. Basically lower is better. We want an HDOP of a minimum of 2.0. We have 7 SATs and an HDOP of 4.7 at a time of about 4 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and fly since now theoretically GPS rescue will work, but we still don't have as good of a lock as we would really want. We'll see if we get one while I'm flying. Here we go. Okay, how are we doing here? Throttle position 28%. I like that. I like a nice low throttle for hover. That means we have a good amount of power. I do have stabilization. I have, oh God. It's not the battery. That was my first thought too. Prop exploded. Just literally exploded. It tore off of the hub, and I wasn't, like, you saw it, I wasn't like doing anything, just cruising. And in the process, this antenna holder broke right here. It is plastic, and you can see this broke off in a not very dramatic crash. It's not metal. Most of the holder is metal, but this part's plastic. So that's just absolutely, that's a no-go right there. Like if it breaks like that, like, okay, I know it's a CINEBOT, it's not like made for ridiculous acro nonsense, but that's just like absolutely a no-go. Like just, you can't, that wasn't a hard crash in remotely a hard crash. I don't know why the prop exploded. Like my first thought would be that there was Loctite on the screws, which is like anytime the Loctite will dissolve a prop, it'll eat it away and it'll just shatter. But number one, I don't think GEPRC is dumb enough to put Loctite on screws. They know not to do that. And number two, the way that it broke off, if that were the case, you would expect to see the hub coming apart, like breaking and opening up like a Pac-Man. And in this case, the prop has sheared off at the hub, but the hub is still intact. So like, I just have no idea what happened there. I kind of don't know what to do. Like I want to review this drone, and I'd be willing to chalk up the prop breaking to just like bad experience, bad luck. But the camera housing breaking is just a complete no-go. That's complete, like that's just, I wouldn't buy this because I'm going to crash it and it's going to break like that. And then what? I got to find another way to mount my antenna. Maybe I should just find another way to mount the antenna and power through. Okay, let's see about that. Oh, I gotta freaking put another prop on too. Ugh. All right, GEPRC, you got me. I don't love that these things broke so freaking easily, but I do love that you included some spares and you made it easy to replace. You just take these 2 screws out and the broken part comes off and gets replaced. It's gonna involve pulling out this bobbin, which I don't love, but I guess that's a consumable part. I will now proceed with the review, but I don't love that it broke, but I do, I don't even need to mess with the bobbin. Smart, GEPRC, okay. Which is the right one? It's there, there's a left side and a right side. It's gonna go, okay. So, I don't love that it broke, but I do love that you made it easy to fix when it breaks. Just like that. What was that? I've been recording for 1 minute and 45 seconds. So like, that's how long it took me to make this replacement, including the time it took for me to talk to you about my thoughts. Easy peasy. And there we go. Back in the air. Awesome. For the record, this time we got sat lock in just about a minute. Again, that's only 6 sats and we would like to see more, but we got the minimum required to fly in about a minute. And I'm going to start by just doing some smooth flying, you know, quote unquote cinematic flying. My definition of cinematic flying is flying slowly and smoothly, not making, you can see my amazingly cinematic back patio with all my junk on it. Smoothly, not making any sudden moves, because sudden camera moves do not work well. I don't have hardly any up tilt on this camera. Oh, let's go see these flowers. I can never remember the name of this plant. Like, I know it, but I always forget it. It's normally like a shrub, but if you let it grow, it will grow to massive size, and I kind of freaking love it. Just that this tiny shrub that people keep chopped down most of the time has the potential to be a gigantic. Okay, and let's do a little dive and see how she handles. Oh, nope. Nope, that's another prop. That's another prop. Holy mackerel. Well, I did say I was going to crash test this. I didn't plan on doing it this early in the review, so good news, the antenna thing didn't break. Bad news, we got a little bit of a dent here on the prop guard, right here. We got a bent prop, and the entire thing is now scrubbing on the inside here. So I think the whole frame has just become deformed in such a way. How is it scrubbing on the inside though? That's weird. Oh, that prop is bent. I see. Okay. Yeah. So, no, I don't know, man. I think the frame is deformed in some way. That's not flyable. That's not, I don't know how I would get this back into shape. It's rubbing here. I don't think it's that the prop is bent. The prop looks the same as the other props. It's rubbing, scrubbing here. It has something to do with this hit, which deformed it here, but it deformed it permanently, and it did not, it creased it. You can see we have like a crease right here. And so like that's just, like a lot of times a whoop frame will take a hit, it'll flex and it'll bounce back, and you're like, well, make it stronger. But here they've made it stronger, and as a result, it took the hit and didn't bounce back. I don't know, like, is that it? As for the props, do you see how the only thing left here is the central piece of plastic? That's it, right? The whole thing just disintegrated and flew apart. The only time when I have ever seen that in my life is when people have put Loctite on the screws. Now these screws have a little bit of blue, which people would call Loctite, but there's a kind of Loctite that's like an enamel that goes on the screw, and that's what we've got here. And that is usually not a problem, I don't think, because it's usually applied to the screws and allowed to completely dry, and then the screws are inserted. I could put another set of 2.5-inch props, like just a completely different set of props on this bird, and then fly it, and then like potentially I would have changed the performance, but more fundamentally, now we've got this rubbing and scrubbing here, and like, as much as I want to like this frame, like I'm not happy that it broke when it crashed, and now it's taken another crash, which is a little bit more of a serious crash, to be fair, but it's just like basically done for. This prop guard's basically done for. It's rubbing and scrubbing, and now I have to try and bend it back into place. Like, what good is it? I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of it. I'm sorry. Want to try the 3.5 inch and see if those props explode? Sure, let's do it. I've got to assume that the 3.5 inch props won't just explode, that that's just something that's going on with the 2.5s, right? I don't know. Let's see here. Oh, even lower throttle position, 22, 21, 18. Let's just find out. Okay, that's good. Oh, that was smooth. Okay. I mean, I know that CINEBOTs are not first and foremost for racing, especially when the durability of the frame is potentially as bad as the 2.5 inches, but this thing's flying smooth as crap. Smooth as swear word shouldn't say for the sake of monetization and family friendliness. That's nice, dude. That's nice, man. That's just so smooth. I love it. Like, smoothness is good because even if you're not doing acro stuff, when you're doing cinematic chasing, you want the smoothest possible flight you can get. So you don't, if you have to do some kind of a dive or something, you don't want prop wash messing it up. That's okay. I'm happy with how this flies. The speed is pretty good. It doesn't have much up tilt, but like if I decided to get some speed and go chase something, see, I get some speed going down here. I don't know what the speed is because, oh, I have sats. Oh, I have 10 sats. That's good. HDOP 2.1, 10 sats, and I got my KPH. Let's see what my speed was going down there. Now, again, I have very little up tilt, so I could get more speed by going to increased up tilt. 60 kph, I'm not even trying. See, this could be really nice for chasing. Chasing cars, like maybe not a race car on a track, but certainly a drift car, certainly like a skateboarder or a biker, a person on a, you know, some kind of a... Let's do the bane of all CINEBOTs, an inverted yaw spin. Oh, that thing did good. Okay. Now I know I'm not supposed to just be ripping this, but obviously that's what I want to do. That's what's the most fun to do. And arguably, if it can rip without, you know, the footage just falling apart, it can fly smooth without the footage falling apart. I'm not going to press it too hard because I don't want to do crazy freestyle and crash it and just destroy it. Which I assume that's what the frame will do if I crash it too much. Because this one is the same design, it's just even bigger and heavier. But it's, gosh, it's fun to fly. See? Oh, it held that great composure through that move. How's our flight time? Flight time, 5 minutes. This is a 1350 6S. So, and I haven't exactly been flying it gently. Settle down. Settle down right there. I am usually the biggest fan of GEPRC's Cinewhoops. The Cinelog and CINEBOT have been my go-to recommendation for everything from like a 2.5 inch up to a 3.5 inch Cinewhoop. It's just such an easy recommendation to make. They are maybe not the best in every way, but just near the top in basically every way, and just such a solid recommendation. I wish I could be as enthusiastic about these two. This new frame design, like maybe I just got unlucky with the 2.5 inch that the props are exploding, and so it crashed way harder than it should have right at the beginning. But no, that first crash was not that hard, and it broke the antenna thing, which then, okay, I replaced it. And the second crash was okay, it was somewhat hard, but like I've done other reviews where I've crashed quads in this category with frames like that, and they've bounced back. The thing is, I would rather have it crash in such a way that a prop gets bent and I have to replace the prop, but the frame is still flyable. That it crashed in such a way that the frame was more or less, like, I'm not going to say unflyable because, you know, with a little determination you can make anything work, but like that prop was scrubbing. That's not going to be an easy thing to kind of like bend back into shape. It should just bounce back better than that. I don't know. I assume the 3.5 inch is the same. It's bigger, it's heavier. It's the same basic design. I assume that when it takes a hit, it's going to crease and it's going to permanently bend in the same way. It flew amazing though, so at least we got to give it that. If you're interested in picking up one of these drones, basically despite my video, then there's links in the video description below to affiliate links. That means that you go, you click the link, you make your purchase, I get a commission. It's a simple way for you to support the channel with money that you were gonna spend anyway. It just means I get a little cut of it. Whenever you use those affiliate links, it helps me out. They're always down there for any product that I review. You can even bookmark them and just save them for your normal shopping and give me a little cut. But I wouldn't blame you if you were like, meh, I'll pass on this one. I probably would too. Despite the coolness, like there's so much like I want to like about it, but if I can't crash the damn thing and have it bounce back at least somewhat, I'm just not sure I can like confidently recommend it. I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's take a look at one of GEPRC's other drones in a similar size class, a little smaller maybe, and see what you think of that. GEPRC can make a very good drone. Here you go. Link down below if you can't see the card for some reason.